Cast. I'm your host, Jared Gillespie, CSO and one of the owners here at Fusion Power. Today, I'm excited to talk about differentiating ourselves in the solar industry. The industry's changed a lot, right? If you guys have been doing solar for more than 2 or 3 years, you've seen a lot of changes. If you've been doing it for 7 or 8 years, it's a completely different industry than it ever was before. In the last 2 years, though, we've seen some pretty crazy headwinds that have changed the way that we have to sell solar, the way that customers think about it, and the way that companies actually have to operate. From the sales side, right, we've gone from, with new interest rates being as high as they are, we've gone from a primarily loan-based market to a PPA, TPO kind of a market. And so we've had to change sales pitches, the way that we do that. There's a new level of market saturation. Some of these markets, you guys have been doing this for a long time, you might be the 5th or the 5th or 6th guy that's knocked on that customer's door. And so the product is very popular, and we're starting to get from early adoption into general adoption, which is really, really cool. The good news is we still have a huge amount of the population that has not even been approached about solar. So we still have a lot of good runway, but in some of the markets that you guys are in, you'll notice that it is getting a little bit more saturated. And so changes need to be made the way that we pitch this product. The other thing is that utilities are completely changing the way that they do buybacks. The days of net metering are probably behind us, and those buybacks continue to drop and drop, which means that we as sales reps have to change the way that we not only present solar, but the way that we design it and the way that we price it if we're going to try to give our customers a good deal. Now, these changes have also affected the way the installers have to operate. And 2024 has been a crazy year. You know, it seems like every week we're hearing about another company that's gone out of business, whether it be an installer, EPC, or even finance companies now that have been getting in trouble. You know, from an installation standpoint, it's gotten pretty difficult, and you can understand why these companies are going out of business. Number one is always because of cash flow, and with the finance companies no longer offering M1 payments for the installer to be able to have the funds to pay sales advances, buy equipment, and pay for the labor up front, they're having to somehow try to float that money themselves. Well, if they don't have that money because payments are low or payments are late or install timelines are taking a long time to end up getting those jobs funded, they run into these cash flow walls and end up having to shut down. So it's really sad to see. The other thing that's making it more difficult is that because they are TPO products and Sunrun, SunPower, LightReach, all these companies that do these TPO products, they're guaranteeing the panels as well as the production for 25 years. And so to ensure that they can actually do that, they have to make sure that these installs are crystal clean. And so they're taking a lot longer to approve these installs. And that is also slowing pay for the installers, which makes it much more difficult for them to operate. As these things happen, we're also seeing a drop in sales, right? Overall sales year over year, it's down 30 to 40%, which is pretty crazy. If companies are not right-sizing themselves and their operational costs are still too high, then again, all of a sudden they end up spending themselves into the ground. And that's basically what happened to Titan, right? One of the biggest companies that we've ever seen in the solar space. That's what happened to them. I went out to lunch with David Williamson a few weeks ago, and I said, so what happened? And he just talked about, as their sales started to drop, the company kept growing operationally. They kept ordering the same amount of equipment, they kept hiring and not paying attention to the shrinking, revenue. And then they had their whip on the back end of all their service calls and everything else that ended up costing more than what they were actually bringing in. And they ended up having to close doors. And so part of that, is EPCs and these installers, a lot of them that are going out of business they're either not seeing it or they're not willing to make the hard decisions that need to be made in order to stay in business. And that's one of the things that's very difficult, right? Because it's a competitive industry. If you make a choice that's going to drive away your sales, well, now your revenue drops and you're out of business. If you concede to everything and you continue to give these low red lines and do whatever it takes to get the volume, well, then you run out of money on the back end. And so it's kind of a double-edged sword there where companies need to make the hard decisions, but we need the sales industry to understand what the installers are up against. If you guys have a big pipeline, you need to make sure that your installer is healthy, because if they're not healthy and you're continuing to ask for more and more and more, and they continue to give it to you, that should be a red flag for you, because they're going to run out of money and you're going to end up like, well, there's probably a lot of people listening to this that have actually had their installer go under and you lost your pipeline. We don't want that happening. So make sure that you're doing things and that you're partnering with your installers to make sure that they're healthy so they can continue to operate and to be able to pay you the awesome commissions that they're available in this industry. So as we get into this new kind of phase of solar, one of the things that we have to ask ourselves in the field is, how do we differentiate ourselves? How do we make ourselves different than the last 5 or 6 guys that knocked on the door, or maybe the couple guys that have already presented to them? How do you make yourself different than the competition? And that's going to come across, obviously, in your professionalism. It's going to come across in your personality, in your demeanor, the way that you present, your product knowledge, right? That's a big thing. And then how truthful and how accurate you are. As the utility companies keep changing and the buybacks change, unfortunately, our proposal tools have not. And most of us are relying on a specific tool out there that is very, very generic in general, that doesn't necessarily give accurate results. However, it's on paper, it's pretty, it's digital. And so reps are just continuing to say, as long as you go solar, you're not going to have a utility bill. And that makes customers very, very unhappy when they still get a $100 bill or more after they've gone solar. And so you have to make yourself different by saying, look, I know that the last guy probably told you that you're not going to have a bill at all, or you know of somebody that got solar and they still have a huge bill. I'm here to tell you the truth and educate you on how solar actually works. And solar by itself, in a market that doesn't have one-to-one net metering, is not going to be nearly as effective or offer the same kind of savings as solar plus battery. So you're going to continue to hear more and more about the importance of adding battery to these systems so that you can actually have that full offset and get rid of those utility bills altogether. So if you haven't learned how to do that yet, it's time to start educating yourself and take care of that kind of training. If your company's not offering it, this may be a reason or a good point in time that you want to start looking at a different company that does understand it, that knows how to sell it, and that can teach you how to sell it as well. So the question now, though, is, you can differentiate yourself as a salesperson by being educated, by the way that you present, by the values that you hold. However, your differentiators are also going to be largely tied to your install company, right? What do they have to offer that's different? If the installer is just a commodity and all they do is install the same system, the same equipment, the same adder prices, they're all a dime a dozen is what it sounds like, right? And then in that case, all you're doing is chasing the lowest red line and waiting for that company to go out of business and then hopping around from the next to the next. And that's what we see. And that's why the businesses go out of business. So what we have to look at is, what is it that installer offers, right? How is that installer going to be around for a long time? What do they give you as a salesperson that's going to give you a better platform to sell more volume, to be able to do it in the right way, to have the transparency to know what you're actually getting paid, that's going to be able to communicate with your customers to let them know what's going on so that they have a good experience and everything that you promise on the front end is accurate. So what is it about your installer that makes it a place that you want to sell outside of a red line? At Fusion, we try to differentiate ourselves. Number one is by our experience, by our history, right? We've been around since 2017. Our leaders have been in the industry for over a decade. Combined with all of our leadership, it's over 100 years of experience, or maybe even more than that. And so when we talk about the knowledge of how to operate, the knowledge of how to sell, the knowledge of how to service, how to engineer, all that kind of stuff is like, we have so much experience, we can guarantee a phenomenal experience for anybody that's going to be coming in under our install platform and sales platform. We have NAPCEP certified engineers on staff that we know that our plan sets are true and accurate, and that when they get installed, they're going to get a green tag every time. And if we get that green tag, what does that mean? PTO is going to happen a lot quicker. Customers happier, customers referring, faster funding. Business is still we're still in business. We're the highest reviewed solar company in the state of Arizona. We have more reviews than any other solar company out there, and higher reviews than anybody out there. There's a reason that takes place. And so as reps are looking for a company to sell with, it's like, does your installer give good service? Do they make customers happy? Do you make customers happy? Like, those reviews are really, really important. Experience of like what the company's actually done. If it's a brand new installer and they've never installed a system before, that work may not be up to par. We've done 10,000 installs at this point, and we're able to show our customers on a heat map, here's all of our customers in your area. You can see that there's 100 other neighbors, in this square mile that have already gone solar with Fusion. That's going to give you a lot of credibility, and that's going to help you to differentiate yourself from maybe a smaller company that's been around for a while but just doesn't do a lot of volume. That gives you that kind of momentum. So consider that. The other thing is talking about speed, right? We talk about speed from sale to glass on the roof. That's ensuring the pull through of your job. But even more important, as we mentioned, is the speed from install to PTO. If a customer gets their system installed and they're waiting for 2 months to actually be able to activate the system and start saving, that's not a good experience for them. And it's a bad experience for, as I mentioned, the installers, because they're not getting funding and they're floating those commissions. It doesn't work. And so you have to have quick installs, you have to have quick PTO. Fusion is the fastest installer in the state of Arizona, median net install time of 31 days. I think we're 2 or 3 days better than the next best competitor. On average, we're 10 days faster than the top 20 in the state. And so that speed is really important, and that goes for the back end as well. We're about 2 weeks faster than anybody even close on PTO times. Customer service and communication. What does your installer provide from customer and communication? Because I know as a sales rep, most of us don't want, we want to sell, we want to be done. We don't want to have to necessarily talk to that customer. We want to get more business, right? If we want to talk to customer, we want to do it to be able to get referrals, but I don't want to have to go back chasing down docs and all those different things. And so you want to have an installer that's going to have good, consistent communication with those customers, texting and emailing and live phone calls to let them know where their project is, to be able to answer their questions, to be able to send them, copies of their docs or whatever the case may be. So we're really big on that to make sure that every time a project status updates, we're letting the customer know about what's going on. And then after the install, having quick service. When we were with a previous installer and somebody called in because their inverter wasn't working, it would be 3-4 weeks before they could even be seen. Our average service time right now is like a day out. We're like there on the spot to take care of our customers. So it's really, really important. The other thing is in the world that we're in right now, where it's getting more and more dangerous for the finance companies. I mean, we just saw SunPower go under. You guys see a couple of the other TPO products that are slow paying right now. I hope that they're not going under, but it's scary, right? When we see the turmoil on the financing side, it's important that you're well diversified so that if that one lender goes under, hopefully they don't have your whole pipeline and you don't, and now, you're stuck with a bunch of install jobs that you can't get funded on and you have to go back and sell the customer on a new lender or whatever. That's going to be a major hit. So make sure that your installer has a lot of different lenders that we use. We use 9 or 10 here at Fusion. We want to make sure on the front end that the sales reps have as many tools as possible to be able to win that business, right? If they need something that's going to give a lower credit approval or higher DTI or a higher EPC cap or whatever the case is, we want to have as much opportunities to win that business, but it also allows us to diversify so that if there are problems in the future, we're still going to be standing tall. You need to make sure that your installer offers a good warranty, right? I think most of them are pretty standard now. We all offer the same equipment that has the 25-year warranties on it. But what is the workmanship warranty? What is the roofing warranty? We offer 25-year roofing warranties along with 10-year workmanship on everything that we do. And then the last thing, this is where we're going to get into kind of the meat of the show today, is what does your company do for a whole home energy efficiency approach? Solar alone is not going to be enough moving forward as the utility buybacks keep dropping. You have to add more. We talked about batteries is going to be a big thing, but we want to talk about, lowering consumption before we actually produce with solar. So what are some of the things that you guys offer, right? We talk about batteries. What else is in there to help reduce? You have insulation, you've got AeroSeal, you've got HVAC smart chips, you've got new HVACs that are going to be more efficient. EV chargers are going to be things that people want. Being able to do your own roofing. These are things that installers are going to have to adopt and have to be able to add to their platform to be able to stay relevant in the space. Okay. This adds more value for your customers. It also makes them sticky. So if I'm a new customer and I know you guys know that you're going to have your customer approached by 3 or 4 other companies, maybe even permit poached for the people that do that kind of shady work, you've got to be able to protect that customer. And so getting something in their house and offering them a service up front is going to make them much less likely to listen to a competitor. So with that as a backdrop, I want to talk about these kind of extra added services as a differentiator and as a value add for your customer. So our next segment, I'm going to be bringing in our manager of Fusion Home Solutions, what we call our reward products, or our energy products. Colton Blaisdell has been with us for about 2 years, Colton?
3 years, actually.
Coming on 3 years?
Yeah.
Okay, you started in service, right? And now you're doing something quite different. Kind of give us a little background. What is it that you do now?
So right now I manage our installation departments, our AeroSeal departments, and then demand management as well.
It's awesome. Tell me about as you guys go into homes, and I think this may be obvious for a lot of people that are listening to this, but what are the common inefficiencies that we see in customer homes?
Well, like I said, when my guys get in there, whether it be AeroSeal or installation, I ask them to do an audit of the home to see where other opportunities are. Obviously, with the installation guys, some things that we run into are old insulation that have either collected moisture or there's just an inefficient amount. We also see old AC units, that aren't operating at full capacity or aren't efficient and things like that. Old windows, things of that nature. Yeah.
And then leaky air ducts as well is a big one, right? We'll talk about that when we get into AeroSeal. On insulation, when they check that, like what's the lifespan on insulation? Like how long is insulation going to last? How often do you actually need to have it replaced or added to?
20 years, you know what I mean? Could even be more depending on the type of insulation. Obviously, we offer the blown-in cellulose, which has a long lifespan, but there's different opportunities there. Spray foam, fiberglass. Cellulose has been proven to be a much desired type of insulation. When there's leaky air ducts, things like fiberglass insulation can be kind of dangerous because if there's leaky ducts and that AC turns on, it acts like a vacuum, right? So whatever dust particles or fiberglass particles that are in the attic can get sucked in through those leaks and dispersed into the home, which is ultimately not very good indoor air quality for homeowners and things like that.
For sure. So what are some of the things, like we talk about those inefficiencies and some of those dangers. What are the services that we offer, how we increase the efficiencies in homes? What are some of the products that we offer?
So we offer blown-in cellulose insulation, which is awesome. We do duct sealing as well in the form of AeroSeal. I think it makes us a strong competitor in the industry to offer these other things that customers see immediate value in. I know that there's a lot of customers out there that aren't necessarily familiar with solar or how it works. But when they hear things like insulation and duct sealing and stuff like that, they see immediate value in that.
For sure.
You know what I mean? And with solar, in some cases, it can be, long-term savings, things like that, But those other services that we provide can offer those savings and efficiencies right up front.
Well, it's immediate, right? We had a customer, I think it was last week, that I heard is like, this guy didn't realize that he had zero insulation in his attic or something like that. You guys went up there like, sir, you don't don't even have any insulation. Yeah. And he's like, well, no wonder my bills have been so high. And we put that in there, and he's like, overnight, I could see a complete difference.
Absolutely.
In the home. And so we've been doing, these energy products for several years. Even as a sales-only company, before we got into installs, we were doing AeroSeal just because we felt like it was such a good value add. And now we're doing insulation. We're doing this in-house rather than subcontracting it out. And it's cool having you run that because our reps can schedule it in-house. We can get it done quick. The customer, like you said, they're getting that value right away, which is super huge. And then we do these other products that are super important as well. We, got in these AC misters that will cool down the HVAC coils outside so that immediately it's blowing cold air into the house, making it way more efficient. Trey did this on his house. Trey's our CEO, and his HVAC usage dropped by like 50% with this thing. Like, it's a really cool product. And we're doing the HVAC chips that extend the life of the AC cycle and continue to have that fan blowing to get all the cool air out of the ducts into the house, so it doesn't just sit there and reheat up. And then we've done things. We've contracted out windows, and we've done variable speed pool pumps. But we try to do all of these different kind of products. Insulation, though, and AeroSeal are kind of go-tos. They're very easy to do, and we're doing it in-house. What would you say? Kind of explain what's the process of doing an installation on somebody's house?
So my guys usually show up on site. We have a machine that's in a 26-foot box truck. Obviously we get to the house, we pop our heads up into the attic, see if they have an adequate amount of insulation, or if it's a situation where the insulation that is existing, we're really paying attention to the quality of that, right? Because in some circumstances, it doesn't do the homeowner any good to blow over some insulation that's collected moisture, or there's situations where homeowners have roof rats and things like that. So in that case, we'd obviously, get the insulation removed before we actually blow into the attic.
Do most people have blown in, or do people have fiberglass? Or is it kind of both? What do you guys see?
Mixture of both, but I would say most common is fiberglass.
Okay.
Bats. Yeah.
So do we just blow on top of that then?
Correct, yeah.
Okay. Gotcha. And what's standard on that? Like the R whatever rating? Can you kind of talk about what that is?
Yeah. So for blown-in cellulose, the standard in Arizona is 10 to 12 inches, right? So if we go into a house and their fiberglass insulation, the R values are a little bit different, but if the fiberglass insulation is existing, We usually blow about, depending on how much area that fiberglass covers, we'll blow up to 16 to 18 inches just to make sure that there's an adequate amount in there.
And each inch is basically covers you for an hour of heat penetration,
Correct.
right? That's kind of how that works.
Yeah.
So we want to make sure that
Get into
they've
the R
got,
value, yeah.
they want to be able to have a day's worth of protection there. With insulation, how much more efficient can a customer expect their house to become?
Well, there's a couple different things, right? So obviously in the summer it's going to trap that cold air into the house, right? In the winter it's going to keep the warm air in. As far as efficiency, I mean the AC units don't work as hard. You know what I mean? Those are ultimately more efficient over time, so it extends the life of the AC. So yeah, I mean that's pretty much like the basic with insulation. You know what I mean? Is it really can extend the life of some of your other energy efficiency products. Especially their AC, which is super important in the climate that we live in.
For sure,
Arizona.
allows you to use more energy and, like you
Correct.
said, be able to actually trap it rather than just having it escape out the roof.
Exactly.
So, let's talk about AeroSeal. For people that are not familiar with that, what is AeroSeal and how does it work?
Okay, yeah. I always get excited talking about AeroSeal because it's really interesting. So basically what AeroSeal is we basically pressurize your ductwork, right? So we plug up all the registers in the home and we take a measurement on leakage on a pre-seal test, right? And I actually have a report here. Every time we do an AeroSeal job, it prints out a report for the customer, which is super great for the customer to be able to put eyes on it, right? Because when you're sealing someone's ductwork, not a lot of people are getting into their attics and they can't physically see it, whereas the insulation, they can pop their head.
Well, you'd never know,
Exactly.
right? You just would never know.
Yeah, so we do that pre-seal test, right, which basically tells us in cubic feet per minute how much air they're losing, right? So for this house in particular, they were losing 154.9 CFMs of air, right? To a customer, they're like, what is that?
Yeah, right.
So right below it, it says, this is equivalent to a 29.3 square inch hole. So if you were to take every little hole in their ductwork, put it all together, it would add up to a 29 square inch
And
hole.
we're talking over 2 feet there.
Exactly.
Just blowing straight out into the attic.
Which most people don't know. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It doesn't even occur, right? They just trust that whoever installed the system did a great job. You know what I mean? And so after service, basically what the machine does is it heats up a sealant. That's water-based acrylic sealant, right? Basically like glue, similar to like Elmer's glue. Turns it into vapor form because there's a heating box. Turns it into vapor, and it actually sprays it in mist form throughout the ductwork. And as that air tries to escape with that sealant, as the sealant escapes from the hole, it basically builds a sealant around the hole, right? And then it moves on to the next one, right? So as the air escapes, it actually seals up all those holes. On this report, and we've had very great success with AeroSeal down to, reduction down to 97%. You know what I mean? So in this particular report, they were at 154.9 cubic feet per minute full of lost air. And then at the end of our sealing, we were down to less than a square inch.
Amazing.
Yeah. So, and
can you imagine that though? Blowing out 2 feet of air, like a hole of 2 feet of air nonstop all the way down to an inch. I mean, that's a huge upgrade. That's a huge value for the customer.
Right. And like I'd mentioned before, a lot of, it increases the efficiency of the AC. It doesn't have to work as hard. Obviously, you get better airflow in the house, but especially in a place like Arizona where there's a lot of dust in the air and things like that. People have fiberglass or cellulose insulation in their attics. Like I said, when you turn on that AC unit, if there's any holes, that AC unit, the ductwork acts like a vacuum, right?
Yeah.
And it can pull all that dust in. So with all those holes being sealed, it improves the indoor air quality in the home too, which is good for pets, obviously normal people, but pets, kids, things like that.
Yeah, for sure.
One of the reactions that I give the customers is the package deal aspect of the whole thing, right? So when I get on the phone with customers and I'm explaining insulation, a lot of the time they don't know that I run those departments here and that we do it in-house, right?
Yeah.
So they're asking me questions like, well, what company do you go through to do insulation? And I say, oh, no, we actually do all that in-house.
Yeah.
And they find out that it can be bundled with the solar and everything when it comes to like a loan or the financing. And so there's been a really good response to that because, the goal for a lot of customers, I feel like, is they want it to be a one-stop shop, right? They don't want to have to, go around and have all these different contractors. So that's one of the big, reactions that we've got from customers is that they're super excited that it's a one-stop shop and that they don't have to, deal with more than one contractor coming in and out of the home.
And you mentioned too that idea of having it bundled is cool. Everybody likes a bundle, right?
Yeah.
If you can get your home phone and your internet and your TV all in a bundle, you're probably paying close to just as much, but it feels like it's a deal because
100%.
I got a bundle.
Yep.
And so if I can say, hey, I can get you AeroSeal and insulation for $4,000. Oh, cool. That must be a good deal, right?
Absolutely.
And you're able to get more services out of that. So is that pretty typical, like pre-servicing this, like what is the average hole, right? What is the average loss CFM? Like this example you have, you said 100, how many?
154 CFMs.
What are you seeing on average?
It's mixed. So, sometimes we go into a lot of older homes, and that's when the CFM, the leakage is pretty high, right? And a lot of these new builds in these suburban areas, we see a little bit less leakage, right? But we can still get down to, 80 to 90% reduction.
Yeah.
It really just depends on who installed the unit, you know what I mean? Some installers just, like Parker & Sons, for instance, have better install quality than others. So.
Would you be willing to say, though, that there's probably not a whole lot of houses out there that don't have leaks that would benefit from this?
I would say 90% of homes at least leak, 30 to 40%.
I just know personally, like I had it done on my house. I did it for my brother. I did it for my dad. I did it for my sister. And all of them are like, our house is cooler now that we've done this. It's like, well, yeah, because you were leaking all that cold air into your attic. Now it's actually coming into your house.
Right. It's a lot of the cases. It's, we'll go out, we'll turn the AC on and we'll go up into the attic and it'll be freezing cold, but it's really hot in the house.
Yeah.
And it's pretty apparent that they're leaking a lot of cold air into the attic, which is not a living space. So.
For sure. Yeah, you want to go take your bed up there and it's like use it.
Yeah.
But we've got reps that they just refuse to sell solar without at least adding AeroSeal or insulation, just because if you can reduce their consumption by 5 or 10%, we already saved the customer a whole bunch of money. Mm-hmm. And now we lower their cost per kilowatt hour by replacing their expensive power with cheaper solar power. Now we're really getting into it and helping that customer.
Yeah, and I found that the combination of these products paired in with solar makes us an extremely big competitor in the industry. You know what I mean? It's a lot of people see immediate results from solar, right? Some people it's more of the long-term savings, but if you pair it with all these different products that we offer, we're really a force to be reckoned with.
Have you gotten any feedback from specific customers, maybe directly or from your guys, on just kind of what the customers have said once they've received these services? I mean, I just mentioned, what my own family has said and what my experience has been. Anything else that you've kind of heard back from our customer base?
Yeah, so one of the things I hear most often is that they were excited that we could get in the house immediately and provide these services, because depending on which area you live in, the permitting process and everything can take a little bit longer. So the most feedback that I get is, when I call customers and I ask them to get on the schedule for their installation in AeroSeal, they're excited to get the project started right away. And like you said, people don't even know what's in their attic. They could be sitting up there 7-8 years with no insulation. And so when we take those before and after pictures, we can sometimes pop our head up in the attic and say, hey, you have 2 inches of insulation out there. It's settled, or no insulation. You know what I mean? And it's just, these people are just, in awe about, how come I never knew this? You know what I mean? So I think it brings them a sense of comfort just to know that they're not only getting solar, but they're getting all these other things that are going to make their home a lot more energy efficient and improve things like indoor air quality and stuff like that.
Well, and it's just such an easy sales talking point too, right? If you're at the table and you're being this consultant, it's like, what have you done to make your house, to reduce your energy costs, this far? And maybe they've done some things, maybe they've done windows or who knows, but it's like, when did you last get your insulation looked at? I don't know. We never have. How long have you been in the house? We've been here for 15 years. Okay. Well, how old is the house? 25 years. Do you mind if I just go up there really quick? You go up there, you take a picture, bring a little, measuring tape with you. Like, just so you know, you've only got 4 inches. You're supposed to be at 14, right? That's an easy sale. Or you go up there and, by the way, you take a little temperature gauge with you, It's like you're only at 104 degrees in the attic. Most attics are about 140 degrees, which means that you've got crazy amount of leaking. We really need to seal up your ducts. By the way, I can do that as add-ons with your solar package at no extra cost to you, right?
Absolutely.
Just such an easy way to bring this in. Customer gets better value. Obviously, the rep can make more money with it, which is nice as well. And again, it differentiates you. A couple cool stats is, as a company, overall, and this is something we got to keep working on, but we're 30 to 35% cancellation rate on solar only. When we do an extra service like insulation or AeroSeal or these various things, once a customer's received one of those services, we're less than 3% cancellation rate.
Doesn't surprise me at all.
So it's like, if you don't do this, you're just, it's like, you're kind of just throwing stuff at the wall, hoping things that stick. It's like, let's make sure that every single person we talk to is getting these services.
Absolutely.
And actually, you can make the money that you're working so hard to earn. Let me ask you this: what's your vision for this department? Right, we've launched this over the last, I guess, coming up on a year now, and we've done a whole lot of services. I think we're going to do over 200 services this quarter. What's your vision on where this goes?
I mean, my vision ultimately is that, I hope that every sale that we do includes some of these products, one if not two. You know what I mean? I think that the benefit is there, right? You know what I mean? The important thing is just educating people on why it's a benefit. You know what I mean? And how much these extra products can help combined with solar. So I'd like to expand into more teams. You know what I mean? Get more trucks. Get some more installation machines. Get some more machines from AeroSeal, and really, blow this thing out of the water. So that's the goal ultimately. I think is just to make sure that every deal that we push through has one, if not multiple, of these products.
For sure. And I love, when we go back to differentiating ourselves from the competition, like being able to offer these. If somebody doesn't want solar, cool, then just pivot to one of these other products, and you can still make $500 or $1,000 by selling insulation or AeroSeal, which is a great value to the customer. But it's like, instead of having to walk away because you're the fifth guy and there's like, I don't care what you say, I'm not getting solar, I don't like the look on the house. Cool. Well, let me ask you this. What have you guys done for the efficiency in your house? When have you last looked at your insulation? Have you had the temperature of your attic checked to see if you're leaking? And it's like, well, no, I haven't. Okay, well, let me check that for you. We don't even need to talk about solar. And you go into that and you talk about how the AeroSeal process works, like you just described. I mean, that's an exciting thing where customers can get on, to hop on board with that. And having teams that primarily, I mean, I see my vision for that is we've got a sales channel that all they do is sell efficiency products, and then they just create leads to piggyback with solar on top of that. But it's a huge opportunity. And for you guys that are in the industry, again, if you're not doing it as an add-on or being able to default to that as another product to sell, if you can't close a solar deal, you're missing a huge opportunity for sure. Cool. All right. Well, I appreciate all your feedback on that. You guys that have listened to it, I want to encourage you guys in the sales force, like if you're not doing this right now, number one, if your company doesn't offer these extra products, push them to get that for you, or find a company that does. We'd love to have you at Fusion. As Colton talked about, we do it all in-house. It's all same week service. We lock in your customers. We nail them. We nail them down for you. We give them a better value. They're getting more bang for their buck. You're making more money. It's a lot better deal for everybody around. So differentiate yourself in this space. Continue to do things the right way. Guys, we need solar heroes out there. We need people educating. We need people telling the truth. We need to make sure that we're actually benefiting and impacting others for good. Appreciate you being on the program. We'll see you guys again next week on the Fusion Power Podcast.